Incredible woman rescues billionaire CEO from snowstorm, discover their life-changing connection. The blizzard whipped through the small town of Cedarville, Michigan, as Sarah Thompson trudged home, her breath visible in the frigid air. She cradled a grocery bag in one arm and a school project in the other, her heart lightened by the laughter of her two children waiting for her warmth. But then, amidst the swirling white chaos, her heart snagged. A sleek, luxury SUV was stuck in the knee-deep snow, its polished finish glimmering at odd angles from the swirling snowstorm. Her stomach churned. Jack Weston, the billionaire CEO known for cutting corners and dismissing families like hers, was stranded. For a moment, she hesitated. The reputation of the man behind the company that had hurt so many loomed over her like a storm cloud. Yet, there he was, shivering and frustrated, his breath visible in the cold as he struggled against the steering wheel. An ember of compassion burned in her chest, igniting a flicker within her father's legacy. She couldn't abandon him, not when she knew what it felt like to be vulnerable. "Hey," she shouted against the howling wind. "Need a hand?" Jack glanced up, surprise etching his features. He was not just a suit, but a proud man caught in a relentless storm. "I could use some help," he replied, his voice strained. Her heart raced as she led him to her cozy home, filled with family photos depicting laughter and love. The scent of her homemade chicken soup hung in the air, a comforting embrace in the bitter cold. As they settled before the crackling fire, Sarah poured steaming mugs of hot cocoa. She could see the frown lines of tension on Jack's forehead begin to soften. "Why help me?" he asked, the walls around him slowly crumbling. "Because sometimes, we all need a little help," she replied, warmth infusing her voice, the firelight flickering in her eyes. "My dad always said a helping hand can change everything." With each shared story, they peeled back the layers of their worlds. Sarah revealed her dreams of a better future for her children, her voice alive with hope. Jack, beneath the bravado of his success, spoke of the loneliness that filled his days, admitting the money no longer brought him joy. But just as the atmosphere shifted, the phone rang. Jack answered, tension flooding back in an instant. "It's about the factory closure," he muttered, his face dropping. The phone call painted a grim picture of a decision that could destroy Sarah's community, leaving families in despair. Sarah's heart raced. "You can't," she urged, disbelief swelling inside her. "People like you have the power to change this." The raging storm forced them to confront uncomfortable realities: Jack's blurry moral compass and Sarah's unwavering spirit to fight for her family. The agonizing moment of decision hovered like a heavy weight between them. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As blizzard winds gusted outside, Jack could feel the transformation stirring within him. "You make me see things differently," he admitted, his voice cracking with newfound vulnerability. Uncertainty loomed. Could he abandon the people counting on him? Would he continue striding through life with blind ambition or dare to step into a world filled with deeper meaning? The warmth of Sarah's compassion lingered in the air, stirring shadows of vulnerability. Would he cling to the facade that had defined him, or could he embrace a different path? This unexpected storm was more than just weather, it was the beginning of a profound change. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows like a restless spirit. Jack set his mug down, the warmth of the cocoa barely enough to thaw the chill of worry that had settled deep in his bones. He turned to Sarah, her eyes shining with an earnest light. It was unreal how much the mere act of kindness could shake the foundations of his carefully constructed world. "Every decision has consequences, doesn't it?" he murmured, his mind racing back to the meeting that had led him into this storm, a meeting that would decide the fate of hundreds of employees. For a moment, he could almost hear the nervous laughter of the factory workers, faces worn from years of grit and hope, all echoing in the shadows of his mind. "Yes, it does," Sarah replied, her voice steady but soft. "And sometimes those decisions come at a high price. But you have the power to choose differently." Jack leaned back against the couch, staring into the dancing flames. The heat was comforting, nearly mesmerizing, but it felt at odds with the turmoil inside him. "What if I make the wrong choice?" he asked, vulnerability crawling to the surface, a sensation he had long avoided. "What if you don't?" She shot back, her tone fierce but compassionate. "Taking a risk doesn't always mean it will end in failure. And you might just find it leads to something beautiful." He couldn't help but be taken aback by her conviction. There was a fire in her spirit, a love for her community that resonated deeply within him. It illuminated the path he had never dared to explore. Jack had run his business with cold calculations, but here in Sarah's little living room, he felt the stirrings of something different, something that threatened to challenge everything he knew. Out of nowhere, Sarah's children burst into the room, their laughter bubbling over the air like the sweetest melody. "Mom! Can we have hot cocoa too?" the older one pleaded, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Of course, come on in." Sarah laughed, her entire demeanor shifting as she turned to them with grace. They rushed in, offering a perfect distraction from the weight of adult decisions. Jack was drawn to their joy, sensing a warmth that made his heart ache with longing. As the kids climbed onto the couch beside him, Jack took a breath and let the laughter fill the room, if only for a moment. But once the laughter settled, the weight of his decision crashed down again like the snow piled against the windows. "Sarah," he hesitated, unsure how to express the turmoil inside him. Before he could finish, she held up her hand, gesturing for him to stop. "Before you say anything, know this. People have been hurting for a long time because of choices like yours. But it doesn't define who you are. It's what you do next that will shape not only your future but so many others." Her words pierced the foggy thoughts swirling in his head. If he pushed forward with the factory closure, he would be sealing their fates and deepening the chasm that divided wealth from hardship. But if he listened to the voice igniting within, a small, stubborn whisper urging him to fight for them, could he really begin to reshape his destiny? Just as he was about to respond, his phone buzzed violently against the coffee table, drawing everyone's attention. Swiping it open, Jack's heart sank. It was another notification from his office. "Jack?" Sarah asked, her brow furrowing in concern. "Is everything okay?" He stared at the screen, the weight of the moment pressing down like the storm outside. He had to decide not just for himself, but for everyone whose lives hung on his actions. But just then, the door burst open, and the howling wind swept into the house, a reminder of the storm still raging outside. In the chaos, he caught a glimpse of the road ahead, a difficult, uncertain path that could lead to redemption or ruin. What awaited him on the other side of this unexpected journey? Would he find the courage to make a difference, or would he fall back into the shadows he had known so well? In that instant, with the storm howling outside and laughter echoing inside, Jack knew he was standing at a crossroads. A decision loomed ahead that could redefine not just his life but many others. Could he become the man he wanted to be, or would he retreat to the comfort of his past? And as he looked at Sarah, her eyes steady and full of hope, he felt the stirrings of courage begin to blossom within him. What would he choose? Jack's phone buzzed again, a harsh reminder of reality slicing through the warmth of Sarah's living room. He hesitated, the decision looming heavily over him like the storm clouds outside. His fingers hovered over the screen, drawn to messages that carried burdens he felt unequipped to shoulder. I should go," he muttered, unable to shake the feeling of responsibility gripping his chest. The laughter of Sarah's children faded into the background as the noise of the world seeped back into focus. Calls from his office, demands from investors, the weight of expectations. "Jack!" Sarah's voice pierced through his thoughts, filled with urgency. "You don't have to face this alone. Please, talk to me. What does it say?" He took a deep breath, the scent of hot cocoa and wood smoke mixing with his anxiety. But the children's laughter echoed in his mind, a reminder of the lives intertwined with his decisions, and he felt a flicker of defiance. "It's about the factory," he finally admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Sarah leaned closer, her brow furrowed in concern. "What are they saying?" "They're pushing for the closure tomorrow, if things go as planned," Jack replied, his heart racing. "I know it's what they think is best, but what?" She pressed gently, her eyes locked onto his, as if trying to see into his very soul. "I don't want to hurt those people," he confessed, the words tumbling out as if broken free from a dam he had been building for years. "They deserve better. Their lives matter. But the factory, my family, it's all so tangled, Sarah. You have the chance to change things," she urged, her voice warm but firm. "You can take a stand. You can fight for them." The children shifted closer, their innocent faces reflecting a belief in hope that felt lost to Jack. Could he really be the man Sarah believed him to be? The thought of standing up to his board felt both thrilling and terrifying, but a part of him clung to the old ways, the easy path that led to comfort, wealth, and security, at least for himself. The thought of stepping into the unknown made the warmth of the room feel distant. "Remember what I said about choices and their consequences?" Sarah continued, her gaze unwavering. "This is your moment, Jack. If you don't act now, by morning, it may be too late." He looked between Sarah and her children, their warmth wrapping around him like a protective mantle. They believed in him, even when he often struggled to believe in himself. Every smile from the kids, every nod from Sarah solidified a decision that began growing roots deep within him. "I'll talk to them," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "I'll make a stand, but I don't know how." Sarah's eyes lit up, and she laughed softly, the sound like music. "You'll figure it out. And you won't be alone." As they exchanged this moment of hope, a feeling he hadn't realized he craved settled over Jack. The image of the factory came into focus, workers who faced uncertainty and fear, but also of a community waiting for a leader to emerge. "No more hiding," he whispered, conviction awakening in his chest like a long-lost friend. But just as he felt this fire ignite, his phone buzzed again, urgent and demanding. A date had been set for the board meeting, a reckoning that promised confrontation and clarity. Jack glanced at Sarah, and he could see the question hanging between them. Would he find the strength to act, or would he hold back and let the storm claim the lives that had touched him so deeply? As the winds howled outside, Jack realized he was ready to step into the light or retreat into the shadows. With darkness swirling around them, he took a deep breath, preparing for what came next. What storm awaited him when he faced his board? Would he finally break free from his past, or would the choices made tomorrow echo in ways he could never take back? The sound of wind rattled the windows as Jack stared at his phone. Time felt distorted, stretching endlessly and then collapsing in an instant. The laughter in the background faded until he could hear the heavy thump of his heart, each pulse signaling a clash of fear and resolve. Was he truly ready to face the board? Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts again, steady and soothing. "You're not alone, Jack. They can see your fear. They can sense your hesitation. But they also trust you. They need to hear that you care about them, that you're willing to fight for what's right." He looked around the room filled with warmth and life. Snippets of conversations from Sarah's children mixed with the soft crackling of the fire, grounding him in the moment. But then, the thought of the board meeting loomed over him, almost suffocating. The stakes had never felt so high. What if they don't listen? Jack asked, voice tight as he clutched his phone like a lifeline. What if they only see the numbers, not the people behind them? "They will listen if you speak from your heart," she replied, her eyes unwavering. "Show them the faces behind the data. Talk about the workers, their families, and the community they support. You have the power to change their minds." But you need to believe in that power first. He knew deep down that Sarah was right. It had been too easy to get lost in the corporate world, too comfortable to ignore the human aspect that came with it. Now, straddling the line between responsibility and compassion, he struggled to connect the two. His mind wandered to the faces of the workers, men and women who clocked in each day to provide for their families. This wasn't just a factory, it was a lifeline. Jack felt a surge of energy flash through him. It was time to reclaim his sense of purpose, not just for himself but for everyone who depended on him. He could either step up and become the leader they needed or watch as they lost everything. Okay, he breathed, a heavier determination settling in his chest. I want to try. I want to truly fight for them. But what if I freeze in the moment? What if I forget everything I want to say? Then remember this, Sarah said, moving a little closer. You have something they don't. You know these people. You've seen their hard work. You understand their struggles. Speak from your experience. He nodded slowly, taking an emotional inventory of all that was at stake. What if he stumbled? What if his voice quaked? Yet, what if he found the words? What if his vulnerability became strength? Jack glanced outside, where heavy snowflakes began to fall, blanketing everything in sight with a soft white layer. What if I get buried under the pressure? He asked, partly joking but feeling the gravity of the question. You won, Sarah said, so certain it disarmed him. You have me, and you have those people who count on you. You'll find your way. As if prompted by that trust, he took a steadying breath, considering how much he owed to the workers and to himself. Jack could feel resolve transforming into something palpable, a shield warming him against the storm brewing outside and inside his heart. With a final glance at Sarah, her unwavering faith lighting the room, he slipped his phone into his pocket. I won't let them down, he said, his voice stronger now, but just as quickly, doubt crept back in. Would the board truly listen? What battles lay ahead in this new fight? As a rush of cold air swept in with the closing door, Jack knew this was just the beginning. The meeting awaited, a storm of its own brewing. Would he walk out of there as an advocate for his community or an empty suit? The question lingered in the air like snowflakes swirling in the wind, each one unique yet a part of a greater storm. And as Jack stepped back into the storm, he felt the weight of his choices balance on the edge of the unknown. The boardroom was a world away from the warmth and laughter of Sarah's home. Jack stood outside the door, the polished wood cold against his palm, his heart racing. He could hear hushed voices inside. Were they discussing him? The pressure built, gnawing at his resolve. He squeezed his phone again, feeling the small device as a tether to everything he stood for: the workers, their families, the community he often felt was lost among spreadsheets and profit margins. Taking a breath, he reminded himself of Sarah's faith and the faces of those who needed him. Just be yourself, he whispered under his breath. They have to see. The door opened with a low creak, and silence engulfed the room. All eyes turned to him, some curious, others indifferent. He glimpsed the board members seated around the table, a mix of stern expressions and raised eyebrows. He stepped inside, heart pounding like a drum, but he straightened his shoulders and walked to the front, forcing a calmness he didn't quite feel. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Jack started, his voice steady but still carrying a tremor. He glanced at the faces before him, searching for any hint of connection. I know you're all aware of the numbers, the budget and the projections. But that's only part of the story. He noticed one woman, Gloria, leaning forward. Her expression softened slightly as he continued. I want to share with you why these numbers matter. Jack took a moment, gathering his thoughts as the fear threatened to crush him. He envisioned the workers, their dedication, their sacrifices, the families they prayed to provide for every day. These aren't just numbers on a balance sheet, they represent lives. They represent dreams. The people working in our factory are more than just employees, they're parents, sons, daughters. They are our neighbors. Something shifted in the atmosphere. He could see a few heads nodding, something in their eyes shifting as the cold calculations faded into warmth. As he spoke, he shared stories. John, who had just welcomed a new baby, Anna, a single mother juggling 2 jobs, Roy, who was battling illness but still showed up each day to support his family. The room began to fill with a poignant silence, punctuated only by the sound of his voice capturing the humanity behind the numbers. "I refuse to let them get lost in this," Jack said, his passion igniting every word. "We can make a decision today that not only protects their jobs but also strengthens our community. Together, we can create a future where profit doesn't overshadow humanity." He felt the rush of adrenaline pouring through him as he wrapped up, a fire ignited in his spirit. "I ask you to choose empathy. Let us ensure they know we see them, we hear them, and we will fight for them." As a small silence followed, Jack's heart raced. Would they understand? Would they embrace this call to humanity? Then, he saw Gloria exchange glances with a few others, a budding warmth of agreement lighting their eyes. As questions arose from the board members, he sensed the tide was beginning to change, but then someone interrupted, a voice filled with skepticism. "But what about the bottom line?" Jack took a breath. "What about the bottom line today? What will we have if we sacrifice these lives for numbers tomorrow?" The argument raged on, but Jack stood firm, each exchange sparking like fireworks. The stakes were high, and the faces around him were alive with challenge and possibility. As the discussion continued, Jack felt grounded, connected, and more determined than ever. But just as he was reaching for what felt like a breakthrough, the door swung open, revealing a dark shadow from the corridor, a figure shrouded in mystery. Stepping into the heated moment, who was this new player? And what kind of impact would their presence bring? The figure stepped into the room, and for a moment, time stood still. The unfamiliar presence was a woman, tall and composed, her sharp eyes scanning the room before settling on Jack. She wore a long coat that seemed to absorb the tension in the air. Even in this charged atmosphere, there was an undeniable grace to her, a quiet confidence that drew attention. "Excuse me," she interrupted, her voice smooth but authoritative. "I couldn't help but overhear part of your discussion." The board members turned, their curiosity piqued. She took a step forward, slightly raising her chin, as if challenging the doubts swirling in the room. Jack's heart raced anew, caught off guard by her boldness. Who was she? "I am Elena," she introduced herself, glancing at Jack with an intensity that sent a ripple of warmth through him. "And I have been where those workers are. I've had everything: wealth, power, and the demands that come with it. But I lost it all because I forgot what mattered." The air thickened with anticipation. Jack could feel the weight of her words, resonating deeply. Elena continued, "I stood where you stand now, a decision-maker sitting in a stark, cold room, overlooking the impact of my choices. But trust me, the bottom line can't replace lives. It can't replace hope." Gloria leaned forward in her chair, intrigued, nodding as if this were what she had been waiting to hear. Jack took a breath, she was speaking his language. Elena cleared her throat, pivoting to address the entire room, but her gaze remained anchored on Jack. "Your stories matter," she said, her voice growing stronger. "They're what we should weigh before profits. I know what it's like to think numbers lead to success, but those numbers can leave you hollow if the people behind them aren't cared for." Jack felt a thrill. This was the support he'd wished for, a chance for validation in a cold, hard environment that often lost sight of what it meant to be human. But just as a sense of hope began to swell, a board member interjected, crossing his arms with a scoff. "That's easy for you to say. Your perspective is based on loss, not reality. We're running a business, not a charity." Elena turned to face him, unbothered. "And I've learned that businesses built on empathy not only survive but thrive. Isn't it time you considered a different approach? To connect rather than divide?" The boardroom buzzed with murmurs, a flicker of excitement bathed in uncertainty. Jack seized this moment. "We all see the numbers, but we need to see the individual lives we affect. If we can't support our people, what's the point of this company? The tone shifted, an electric energy crackling in the air. Elena's presence acted like a magnet, drawing commitment instead of resistance. The board members began to exchange glances, some contemplative, others ignited by the passion of Jack and this remarkable newcomer. More questions flew, bursts of disagreement mixing with tentative acknowledgments. But Jack felt a shift. There was movement, breathing new life into the conversation. It was as if they might be witnessing a turning point together. Suddenly, the door swung open again, this time revealing a group of workers from the factory. Jack recognized them instantly, faces full of determination but also tinged with uncertainty. "We heard about the meeting, and we want to be a part of this conversation," the spokesperson, a young man named Sam, declared, stepping forward with resolve. A powerful silence filled the room, the magnitude of what this could mean settling in. Jack felt the moment swell with potential. Real change was right in front of them, but as the discussions kicked into a higher gear, Jack's gaze landed on Elena, whose face reflected the hope and resolve that had guided him since the beginning. What did this mean for her future role in this fight? And could they hold the line against those more concerned with profit than people? They were on the precipice of something incredible, but would they have the courage to leap? The unexpected arrival of the factory workers shifted the dynamic in the room. Jack could see their faces, a mix of eagerness and apprehension. They were risking everything by stepping into this boardroom, an unfamiliar arena for them, where decisions that would shape their lives were discussed without their input. "Sam," Jack whispered, full of admiration for the young man's bravery. "Are you sure you want to do this? It could backfire." Sam nodded, determination etched into his features. "We need our voices heard, Jack. If this meeting goes the way I think it will, there could be real change." Elena caught Jack's eye again, an unspoken understanding passing between them. She took a step back to give the workers space. "This is your moment," she encouraged softly, her support palpable. Sam straightened his back, the nervousness draining away. "We want to share our stories, our struggles. We're the heart of this company, and you need to remember that." Jack felt the surge of hope rising again, igniting within him. "Please, tell us," he urged, leaning forward, eager to listen. One by one, the workers began to speak. They shared heartbreaking accounts of long hours, minimal pay, and the constant threat of layoffs. Each voice was a testament to their resilience but also a plea for recognition, a longing to feel valued. Jack's heart ached as a woman named Lila spoke about her mother working overtime to make ends meet, how the stress wore her down until she couldn't even smile anymore. The room felt alive, charged with emotion. Jack glanced around, seeing board members shifting in their seats, some taking notes, others looking down, maybe too ashamed to meet the workers' eyes. Jack realized they were finally bridging the gap that had long existed. Elena stepped forward again, her voice steady. "This is the reality you avoid by focusing so much on profit. The people who strive for you deserve your attention, your compassion." She turned, her gaze capturing every board member. "Imagine if you valued them, how much more they would give back to you. You have the power to change their lives." A murmur of acknowledgement swirled through the room. Jack felt the power of Elena's words. They were becoming more than just a discussion, they were the spark he hoped would ignite a change. Just then, a familiar voice cut through the tension. Richard, a senior board member known for his cold calculation, slammed his palm on the table. "But what is your solution? Words won't fix a bottom line." Jack felt his heartbeat quicken. This was at the pivotal moment he had feared. "It might start with listening, Richard. What if we took a few percentages off profits this quarter to improve working conditions?" Richard scoffed, the disdain evident on his face. "And what then? What do you expect to happen? Just goodwill?" "Goodwill can translate into loyalty," Lila jumped in, her voice strong. "We want to work hard for a company that cares about us. You've got to realize that." Jack's pulse raced with the mounting tension. He could sense a fracture between the old guard of the board and the growing wave of empathy. Would enough of them be swayed? Elena leaned into the moment, gesturing toward the workers. This is a moment of truth. Will you choose to connect or continue to chase profits at the cost of lives? Jack took a breath, clutching the edge of the table. Hope and fear coexisted in him. They were standing at the edge of change, but would the board choose the path of connection or cling to the familiar, cold calculations? And then, without warning, the lights flickered. The energy in the room changed as an operator's voice crackled over the intercom. We're experiencing a power outage across the building. In that instant of darkness, a collective gasp filled the boardroom, but Jack's heart raced in a different direction. What might this sudden twist mean for the conversation? Would the darkness force them to finally see what truly mattered? The darkness hung thick, a blanket of uncertainty that wrapped around the room, clashing sharply with the tension already in the air. Jack felt a wave of confusion, a storm of emotions swirling inside him. Would the power outage stop this moment of reckoning? Or would it propel them to a place they hadn't dared to imagine? Stay calm, Sam's voice echoed softly, breaking through the murmur of the crowd. This doesn't change anything. We're still here. Jack could hear the rustle of papers as some board members fumbled for their phones, screens illuminating their concerns. But others were still, their thoughts lingering somewhere between the stories shared and Richard's calculated dismissal. In this sea of darkness, a glimmer of possibility flickered. Maybe this blackout is symbolic, Elena said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. We're all in the dark about what can be accomplished when we prioritize people over profits. The room fell silent. Jack held his breath, fearful of the moment slipping away, but somehow, Elena's words landed with weight, a gentle persistence that wrapped them all together. Suddenly, a small beam of light flashed as one of the workers switched on a flashlight. The glow danced across the faces in the room, illuminating hope, fear, frustration, and determination. It's time to bring the truth to light, Lila said, her resolve strong against the dim backdrop. We shouldn't have to fight for our dignity in the shadows. Jack felt a surge of admiration for her courage. The board members were often too far removed, disconnected from reality, but here, they were pressed against the raw emotions of their employees. This was the unfiltered reality they had avoided, now laid bare before them. What if Jack interjected, jumping into the moment, what if this board used this situation to press pause on our usual agenda? Instead of dictating terms, we listen. We let you share more together, we can find solutions. A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Richard looked incredulous. This isn't the time for theatrics. We need to fix this before it costs us too much. Isn't this already costing us? Sam countered, an edge of urgency creeping into his tone. Every hour we ignore these voices is an hour wasted. Jack sensed the shift. The workers had momentum, and the board, for the first time, was beginning to sway. In that dim light, beneath a flickering overhead, the shared humanity began to break the ice that had long frozen these relationships. Elena stepped forward, her silhouette accentuated by the beam of the flashlight. Every one of you, sitting across this table, has a choice to make, not just for yourselves, but for every person who loves and relies on the wages they earn from this company. What are you willing to risk to make it right? Jack's heart raced. The question hung in the air, laden with gravity. Would this be the turning point? He could feel the weight of the moment. Each passing second felt electric with possibility. Then, as if responding to the fervor, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the room once more. But instead of the brilliant fluorescence everyone expected, a softer, golden glow filled the space, casting shadows over their faces, enveloping them in warmth, as if encouraging the connection they were all desperately seeking. Jack almost believed in magic for a moment. Perhaps they could turn this disaster into an opportunity. He glanced around, locking eyes with his colleagues, hoping for recognition, longing for unity. Would they dare to embrace this change? Here we stand, Lila said softly, in the light ready to choose differently. As the echoes of her words faded, tension hung heavy, everyone seemed to be holding their breath. Suddenly, it was clear the future of their company was intertwined not just with profits, but with the people who powered it, and just then, the door burst open. A stranger stood silhouetted against a backdrop of chaos, clutching papers tightly as if they were the keys to a new era. Jack's heart raced once more. Who was this person, and what had they come to say? The figure hesitated at the door, the tension in the room thick enough to slice through. Jack squinted into the light, trying to get a clearer view of this unexpected guest. The stranger stepped in, shaking off the snowflakes clinging to their coat like a shroud. A brief gasp passed through the crowd as recognition washed over the board. "It's Claire," someone murmured. Jack felt a sense of familiarity rush in. Claire was the company's former head of human resources, known for her fierce advocacy for employee rights. She had left the company a year ago, citing a mounting frustration with the management's disconnect from the workforce. Jack had always admired her courage. "What are you doing here?" Richard snapped, breaking the silence that enveloped them. Claire pushed through the throng of murmurs, her eyes fierce and determined. "I heard what was happening," she replied, her voice steady. "I couldn't just stand by any longer." "What could you possibly add to this?" Richard challenged, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. The light flickering in Claire's eyes shone back at him. "You're missing the point, Richard. This isn't about profits anymore. This is about the people who work their lives away for this company." Jack felt the stir of hope. She had always known how to cut through the noise. "What do you want us to know?" he asked, stepping closer to her as if hoping to draw strength from her presence. "I have data stories. Real stories from employees who felt crushed under policies that only serve the bottom line." Her voice rose slightly, gathering the attention of the growing crowd that encircled them. "We've lost good people because we didn't listen, and those choices affect families, communities, us all." "What are you suggesting, Claire?" Sam asked, genuine curiosity lacing his voice. "Let us open up this dialogue," Claire urged, gesturing around at the concerned employees. "Not just within this room, but wider. Let us hear from everyone here and those who still work here. It's time we turn this company around, but it won't be easy." The murmur grew, people questioning, others nodding in agreement. Jack felt a surge of something electric within him. Could this truly be the moment they shifted the conversation? "Claire!" someone shouted from the back, breaking the rising tide of conversation. "Are you willing to help us? Can you lead this effort?" Jack felt eyes on him as he turned to face Claire. Would she be willing to step back into this world? He held his breath, waiting for her answer, knowing it could be a pivotal moment. Claire didn't flinch. "I will if you are all ready to change. If you're willing to take that risk, I will help with every ounce of my strength." The room fell quiet once more. Jack's heart hammered in his chest. Was this really happening? Could they pull off what had seemed impossible? Then, as if the universe answered their hopes, a unified voice began to rise from the group. It echoed what Jack had been dreaming of, a chorus of desires and demands for change, all resonating together in a crescendo of passion. And just as he began to believe this could be real, the door creaked open slightly again. This time, a different figure entered, a man in a tailored suit, looking far too comfortable in this chaos. "I hope I'm not late to this party," he said with an unsettling smirk, holding up his phone as if capturing something for the evening news. Jack felt the atmosphere shift like a seesaw tipping precariously. Who was this new player, and what role would he play in their unfolding drama? The newcomer sauntered into the room like he owned the place, a self-assured man with slick-back hair and a smile that felt more like a warning. "Michael Ray," he introduced himself, exuding an air of arrogance. "I'm here to discuss this factory closure you seem to be debating." Murmurs rippled as his presence stirred confusion. Who was this man disrupting their moment of breakthrough? Jack's heart sank. This was not the type of disruption they needed. How had someone like him shown up? "What's going on, Michael?" Jack asked, trying to maintain composure. "Oh, I just thought I'd swoop in and remind you all of what's at stake," he replied, his tone dripping with smugness. "This company's future is on the line, and we all know how these sentimental stories play out. They don't pay the bills." Feeling his resolve falter, Jack shot a glance at Claire, who remained steady. He could see determination in her eyes. She wouldn't let Michael's negativity derail what they had built. "Then let me remind you, Michael," Claire said, voice firm, "that without the people behind those bills, there won't be a company left to run." "But profits, Claire. They matter." Michael shot back, waving his hands as if he could brush aside their shared stories like cobwebs. "You really think your anecdotes will sway this board? Numbers are what keep us afloat." Jack felt the air thicken with tension, but a spark ignited inside him. "Not if we lose everything that makes this company valuable," he interjected, his voice rising with conviction. "We need a workforce that feels heard, respected, and supported. With that, we all stand to benefit more than any quick cut ever could." The room buzzed with unease, but Jack glanced beyond the boardroom table towards the workers who had spoken bravely earlier. Lila, Sam, and even the others were shifting closer, their eyes reflecting a belief that together they could steer the conversation, a conviction Michael had dismissed entirely. "Maybe this is a turning point," Sam called out, emboldened by Jack's words. "We want to matter, and we want this company to be a part of our community. It's about loyalty, Michael. If you continue making choices without us, you'll lose us. You'll lose everything." Michael rolled his eyes like a petulant child. "You think loyalty equates to money? You're naive. Money is what keeps us employed. I know this game, and I know the rules." "No," Jack shot back. "It's about more than rules, it's about leading with integrity. Michael, if you can't see that, then you'll be the one left behind when this company collapses upon itself due to neglect and loss of trust." "Enough theatrics, Jack," Richard chimed in, his demeanor hardening. "This discussion is going in circles." "No, it's not," Elena refused to back down. "This is transformation at its peak. We can't risk losing sight of humanity over margins." Jack took a breath, feeling the weight in the air shift like a tidal wave. "Look," he began, clearing his throat as he looked around the room, seeing hope flicker amongst the workers and emboldened colleagues. "We need to take a step back, a step into light. Let us have a care-focused approach, where we turn our attention to how we support employees, introduce benefits like healthcare and counseling, and nurture our community." A murmur of agreement swelled from the workers. Jack's heart swelled too, he could feel the whirlwind shifting once more. "Together, we can create innovative solutions that sustain both people and profits." "And where does that leave the bottom line?" Michael challenged, a hint of doubt creeping into his tone. "Stronger than ever if you open your eyes," Claire interjected, stepping forward energetically. "If we invest in our workers, it will translate into loyalty and productivity, an unmeasured worth that dismissing them can never provide." Jack could feel the collective energy building. The workers, the board members, everyone eagerly leaned in, interested in the possibilities unfolding. "Let us take the time to figure out what everyone needs, not just what's easiest," Sam said passionately. "And the stories we bring? They matter. They could shape this company's future." That struck a chord. Jack could see Richard's expression flickering between doubt and contemplation. "Let us vote," Richard finally suggested, still reluctant but visibly cornered. "Not all will agree, but we need to make a decision. Either way, it's about time we put our priorities straight." "Absolutely, a vote on the way forward, and with heart in mind," Jack affirmed, bolstered by his colleagues and workers' support now radiating through him. "Let us choose people over profits, communities over cutbacks." Every set of eyes turned towards Michael, who was visibly agitated, fuming in the tide of overwhelming unity pouring forth from the room. But Jack was done waiting for someone else to choose a different path. This was it. Together, we can make something amazing happen, a commitment to transformation, one that we can all believe in, he concluded, feeling the air electric with promise. This was a moment not just for him, but for everyone. Together, we break new ground, Elena echoed softly yet strongly. As the room prepared for the vote, Jack reflected on how far they had come since the freezing blizzard and the deep warmth of Sarah's home. Soon a new chapter would burst forth, one forged in understanding, connection, and a blazing commitment to shine a light on a brighter future. He felt Sarah's unwavering spirit beside him, believing in something so much bigger than himself. It was all shattering and reshaping in the best possible way, nurturing a vision that, like fresh snow, was blanketing Cedarville in a soft embrace of hope. And finally, Jack smiled boldly, standing ready to not only embrace change but to lead it, side by side with everyone who dared to dream for a better tomorrow. Together, in this newfound light, they could transform a blizzard into a brilliant new beginning. As Jack cast his vote, he knew each decision carries weight, not just for numbers, but for humanity itself. And he stepped forward, ready to write a story no one could turn away from, a story they create together. Now, this is your moment to join the journey. Subscribe immediately to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others see this transformative tale. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to support the channel. Only true fans understand the importance of being part of this journey.